You think you have power? You have no idea who you just touched. That's what he said, just a whisper. But it chilled the entire cabin. We all watched phones recording. As the flight attendants dragged a man in a bespoke suit out of seat 1A, they thought he was just an overlooked passenger refusing to comply. They thought he was nobody. They were wrong 5 minutes after this man stepped off the jet bridge. The pilots received a message from the control tower that grounded not just this plane, but the entire fleet. One phone call didn't just ruin a flight. It erased a billion-dollar legacy. This is the story of how Empire Air messed with the wrong man and paid the ultimate price. The cabin of Empire Air Flight 7I-04 bound for Tokyo. Haneda from LAX smelled of expensive leather and conditioned air. It was the calm before the Trans-Pacific storm, that quiet interval where the wealthy settled into their pods, sipping pre-flight champagne and ignoring the world they were leaving behind. Arthur Sterling sat in seat 1A. He was a man who occupied space with a stillness that suggested he didn't need to move. For anyone, he was dressed in a charcoal suit that looked simple to the untrained eye, but whispered 5 figures to anyone who knew fabric. He was 45 with salt and pepper stubble and eyes that were currently focused on a thick legal dossier resting on his tray table. He didn't look up when the commotion started. He didn't look up when heavy footsteps stomped down the aisle, nor when the nasally entitled voice of Julian Vane cut through the ambient jazz music. "Excuse me," Vane said, his voice dripping with the specific irritation of a man who has never been told no in his life. "I believe there's been a mistake. That's my seat." Arthur turned a page of his dossier. He didn't speak Vane. A man in his late 50s, with a face flushed red from too much scotch in the lounge, huffed. He waved a boarding pass in the air like a weapon. "I said, excuse me. You are in my seat 1A. I always sit in 1A. A flight attendant whose name tag read Sarah hurried over. She was the purser, a woman with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She looked at Vane, recognized the Platinum Elite tag on his carry-on, and instantly softened. Then she looked at Arthur, and her expression hardened into something bureaucratic and cold. "Sir," Sarah said, leaning over Arthur's pod, "may I see your boarding pass, please?" Arthur finally looked up. His eyes were dark, unreadable. He reached into his breast pocket, produced the pass, and handed it to her. Without a word, Sarah scanned it. Her brow furrowed. "Mr. Sterling?" "Yes, seat 1A. However, she looked back at Vane, who was tapping his foot impatiently. Vane leaned in, whispering loudly enough for the first 3 rows to hear Sarah. "Look, I'm a Diamond Medallion member. I specifically requested the bulkhead. My assistant assured me this was taken care of. I don't know how he got it, but I need the seat. I have a bad back." It was a lie. Vane stood with the posture of a healthy, arrogant man, but Sarah knew Vane. He was a frequent flyer. He spent hundreds of thousands a year. Arthur Sterling, she'd never seen him before. He was likely an upgrade or someone using miles. "Mr. Sterling," Sarah said, her voice rising an octave, taking on that sickly sweet tone that usually precedes bad news. "It seems there is a conflict in our system. Mr. Vane is one of our most loyal customers, and due to a technical glitch, his reservation for this seat was overridden. I'm going to have to ask you to move." Arthur closed the dossier. He placed his hands on the table. "I purchased this ticket at full fare 3 weeks ago. I'm not moving." The cabin went silent. The other first-class passengers, tech CEOs, socialites, tired bankers all lowered their magazines. Vane scoffed. "Look, buddy. It's not a negotiation. I fly this airline 3 times a week. Who are you? Just take the voucher and move back to business or coach. Wherever they put you, I'm not moving." Arthur repeated. His voice was calm, baritone, and possessed a gravity that made Sarah hesitate for a split second. But Sarah had a schedule to keep. The doors needed to close in 10 minutes. She couldn't have a standoff. She made a choice based on bias. On the visual of the Platinum member standing versus the unknown man sitting, and on the pressure of the clock, Sir Sarah snapped, dropping the customer service facade. "If you do not vacate this seat voluntarily to accommodate our Diamond member, I will have to classify this as a disturbance. You are disrupting the flight crew." "I'm sitting silently," Arthur said. "He is the one shouting, 'I am the purser.'" Sarah said, her voice trembling with indignation. "And I decide who is disrupting the flight. Now grab your bags or I will have security remove you." Arthur looked at Sarah. He looked deep into her eyes, searching for a flicker of reason. He found none, only the petty tyranny of a little bit of power. "You are making a mistake," Arthur said softly. "A very expensive mistake. Is that a threat?" Vane shouted, seizing the moment. "Did you hear that he threatened the crew? Get him off." Sarah reached for the intercom phone. "Captain, we have a non-compliant passenger. I need security at the gate immediately." Arthur sighed. It was a sigh of deep exhaustion. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and sent a single text message. The screen read, "Execute Protocol 7 immediate." He locked the phone and slid it back into his pocket. Very well, Arthur said. Do what you feel you have to do. The arrival of the airport police is always a spectacle. It turns a luxury environment into a crime scene. In seconds, 2 officers heavy with tactical gear squeezed down the narrow aisle. Gentlemen, Sarah said, pointing a manicured finger at Arthur. He refuses to deplane. He's threatening the safety of the crew. The lead officer, Officer Miller, looked at Arthur. He saw a man sitting calmly, hands visible, no aggression. It didn't match the description of belligerent, but orders were orders, sir. Officer Miller said, hand resting near his belt. You need to come with us now. Once the captain asks you to leave, you're trespassing. Don't make me drag you. Vane was smirking in the aisle, already mentally measuring the legroom he was about to reclaim. Go on, Vane jeered. Walk of shame, pal. Arthur slowly unbuckled his seatbelt. The metallic click echoed in the silence. He stood up. He was taller than he looked, sitting down 6'3", towering over Vane and even the officers. He adjusted his jacket, smoothing out the lapels with deliberate precision. He retrieved a slim black leather briefcase from the overhead bin. I want it noted, Arthur said, his voice projecting clearly to the passenger. Recording everything that I have offered. No resistance. I have a valid ticket. I'm being removed solely to accommodate the preference of another passenger. Yeah. Tell it to the judge, Vane muttered. Sarah crossed her arms. Just get off my plane. Arthur stepped into the aisle. He stopped directly in front of Sarah. Sarah Jenkins, Arthur said. Reading her name tag, he didn't say it like a question. He said it like he was filing it away in a drawer. Very dangerous things. You have just made the last personnel decision of your career. Get moving, Miller barked, grabbing Arthur by the elbow. Arthur shrugged the officer's hand off with a sharp, controlled movement. Do not touch me. I am walking. He walked off the jet bridge and into the terminal. As soon as he stepped onto the carpet, the gate agent slammed the door shut. He was stranded. Officer Miller guided him toward a set of chairs to process his ID. Arthur sat, but he didn't look angry. He looked busy. His phone was buzzing. Yes, Arthur said into the phone. On the other end, Robert Vance, a high-stakes legal fixer, crackled with intensity. Mr. Sterling, we received the signal. Are you safe? I'm on the ground, Arthur said calmly. Empire Air Flight 704, they removed me. Understood, Robert said. The team is assembled. We have the leasing agreements on screen. We have the debt covenants ready. Do we have the green light? Arthur looked through the glass windows at the massive Boeing 777. He thought about the smirk on Vane's face. Burn it down, Arthur whispered. And ground them, all of them. 5 miles away in a Manhattan boardroom. The atmosphere was electric. This was the headquarters of Apex Global Holdings. Robert Vance stood at the head of a massive table. Status, he barked, sir. We have confirmation, an analyst replied. The timestamp of Mr. Sterling's removal was 1842 EST. We have verified video feed. They physically laid hands on the principal. Robert pointed a laser at a legal document on the screen. Clause 141, 2B, the key person dignity and safety covenant. Read it, the analyst read aloud. In the event that any designated principal of the lessor, Apex Global, is denied service or removed from any aircraft owned by the lessor without just cause, the lessor reserves the right to immediately revoke airworthiness certificates and declare the aircraft stolen property. This triggers a cross-default on the entire fleet. And how many planes did they lease from us? Robert asked. 82% of their long-haul fleet, sir. 140 aircraft. Robert picked up the red phone. Within minutes, he was on a conference call with LAX Tower and Empire Air Operations. This is Robert Vance, General Counsel for Apex Global. I am formally notifying you that the lease agreement for the aircraft tail number N70 has been terminated. Furthermore, we are exercising the cross-default clause for the remaining 139 aircraft. Is this a joke? The Empire director laughed. You can't terminate a lease in rush hour. Mr. Higgins, Robert interrupted. You are operating stolen property. Mr. Arthur Sterling, the chairman of Apex Global, the man who owns the metal your passengers are sitting in, was just forcibly removed from his own property by your staff. He has invoked the kill switch. The silence on the line was profound. Did you say Arthur Sterling? Higgins' voice dropped back. On Flight 704, the power suddenly died. The air conditioning stopped. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by harsh white emergency glares. In Seat 1A, Julian Vane's movie stopped abruptly. Hey, what gives? Captain Bennett stormed out of the cockpit. Sarah, who did we just offload? Just a disruptive passenger. Then Mr. Sterling, Sarah stammered. Did he say anything? The captain demanded. He said I made an expensive mistake. The captain let out a string of curses. He looked at Vane, who was holding an empty glass. Captain, when is the power coming back on? It isn't. Bennett said flatly. This flight is canceled. You are sitting in a seat. That belongs to the man who owns this airplane. And because we kicked him off, he just repossessed it. A ripple of shock went through the cabin. Station manager rushed in pale and trembling. Captain, it's not just us. Every flight Paris, Tokyo, Dubai. They've all been grounded. The leasing company triggered a fleet-wide default. Sarah's hand covered her mouth. The man in 1A, he grounded the whole airline. He's killing it, the captain said, watching police cruisers block the plane's wheels outside. And we're the ones who pulled the trigger. Inside the terminal, Empire Air CEO Richard Graves arrived in a panic. He found Arthur Sterling sitting quietly reading his dossier. Graves dropped to one knee on the dirty floor. Mr. Sterling, please. I am Richard Graves. I am horrified. Sarah Jenkins will be terminated. Fane will be banned, please. Our stock dropped 30% in an hour. Reverse the injunction. Arthur finally looked Mr. Graves, I purchased a seat. I was humiliated and removed from property I owned. You call this a rogue employee problem. It's a culture problem. You taught Sarah to do what she did. I didn't ground your airline over a seat. I grounded it to expose your rotten foundation. The fallout was total in 24 hours. The video went viral. Julian Vane's investment firm collapsed because Arthur throttled his data feeds and called in his debts. Sarah Jenkins was fired and became a social pariah. Richard Graves was terminated by his board without a severance package. 6 months later, Arthur Sterling stood at a newly renovated gate at LAX. Behind him sat a Boeing 777, painted midnight blue with a silver phoenix on the tail. It was the flagship of his new carrier, Zenith Global Aviation. He had bought the ruins of Empire Air for pennies on the dollar. At Zenith, Arthur told the press, "Seat 1A is just a seat. We are not in the business of transporting wallets. We are in the business of transporting people." He didn't take the first flight. He stayed on the ground as the plane took off. A young mother nearby struggled with the stroller. Arthur stood up. "Please, ma'am. Take my seat. I can stand." "Thank you, sir," she said, exhausted. "That's very kind. It's not kindness." Arthur said, watching his plane disappear into the clouds. "It's just the way it should be."